Maryland football will have to rely on the pass heading into Big Ten play.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Maryland football. One takeaway that I have from Maryland's football's out-of-conference schedule, we are going to have to rely on the pass this year for Maryland football. So it is pretty clear to me, it's pretty obvious, in my opinion, that Maryland football is going to have to be a passing game this year. I just don't see it changing very much. It's not necessarily a great thing. I don't think. I'll go ahead and say that. I think when we get to some of these games against some of these opponents, most notably, everyone's thinking about this Wisconsin game coming up, and Washington's in a couple weeks, in Nebraska. If you want to go way out, we play teams like Michigan, Rutgers, whatever the case is. To be a one-dimensional type of team and have to rely on the passing game is a scary thing for Maryland football. So I'm going to go ahead and say this as well. So it is very possible that Malik Washington has some huge numbers this year for Maryland football. Like, it is very in the realm of possibilities that Malik Washington's numbers look honestly kind of amazing after this year for Maryland football. We could look at it and be like, wow, he passed for 3,500 yards and had 30 touchdowns. And it's like, yeah, we love his talent. We think he's a really good player. But Maryland football to throw the ball 40 times a game to win. And I've never heard a coach, I've never heard an analyst, I've never heard somebody that's in tune with football be like, yeah, passing the ball 50 times a game, completely being a one-dimensional football team gives you a good opportunity to win a lot of games. And I think we've gotten a little bit misleading so far because we played FAU, FIU, and Towson. Or sorry, FAU, NIU, Northern Illinois, and Towson. Which, let's be completely honest, all those teams are bad. They're bad compared to what Maryland is. They don't come close to the team that we are. And I don't want to sit here and act like, oh, we beat those teams. Oh, we did this against those teams and be like, that's going to work for the rest of the schedule, because it's not. And so right now, Maryland's been a one-dimensional football team in terms of relying on the pass on the offense side of the ball against those three teams. Those three teams where I think the shortest line was maybe against FAU, and it was down to like 16, 17, like I want to say. I don't remember exactly the number, but teams that we knew we were going to beat by a pretty good amount every single one of these games. And it's not like, that's the thing that's most concerning. It's not like one of these games our run game got going, our offensive line was blocking at a high level. That wasn't the case. Every single one of these games that we played so far this year, I'm going to focus more on the Towson game just because we're kind of talking about that still. Every single one of those games, Maryland football hasn't been able to run the football. We haven't eclipsed 5 yards per carry, which to me is kind of like, okay, if you're at 5 yards a carry, you're doing it pretty well. I think in the NFL, they would consider that pretty good. In college, when you're playing Towson, even 5 yards per carry isn't anything crazy. And so when we look at some of these games, it's like, come on, Maryland football. Like, let's go. Let's block better, because we're just looking awfully one-dimensional. And I promise that is not going to hold up against some of these teams that we play coming up. And you can see it in the numbers. You can see it throughout the year, every single one of the game. Let's just focus on the Towson game. You could see it. No Maryland rusher played that well. No Maryland rusher got to that 5 yards per carry mark. We're throwing the ball a ton right now. So I'm in the box score right now for the game. Maryland rushing. We rushed the ball 42 times. 42. So we tried to stick with it against Towson. It was clearly more of an emphasis to stick with it. We gave a lot of different guys, a lot of different carries, and we ended up running 3.6 average against Towson, a 3.6 average. Iverson Howard was our leading rusher at 4 yards per carry. Williams 3.9, Nolan Ray 2.6. All of them got a good amount of carries. That's just not going to get it done with the 3.6 average. And so it's clear to me, and it's pretty obvious, and we can go through some of the other games as well, but you guys have heard me say it. But if you guys want me to go over it, I totally can. I'll give you guys the numbers real quick. Against Northern Illinois, guess what the numbers were rushing? We carried the ball 28 times, 3.1 average. Nobody got to 5. Nolan Ray was the highest at 4.5 yards per carry. And there was a very similar thing against FAU. And so it tells you that right now it's working, but it's just not sustainable. When we go on the road to Wisconsin, if you think that we're just going to go in there and throw the ball for 330 yards and Malik Washington's going to have 3 touchdowns, it just ain't realistic when you play some of the better teams on your schedule. And I know Alabama kind of just cracked Wisconsin. I know they kind of just got slammed by Wisconsin. That was kind of an interesting game. I haven't been able to watch it in full, but they got beat pretty good by Alabama, and which is totally kind of acceptable. We know the talent that Alabama has, but when you look at what Alabama did, this is why it's a little bit concerning. Alabama didn't really run the ball very much against Wisconsin. They didn't run the ball very well against Wisconsin either. And Alabama, they got dudes on the outside, so they don't really have to. I just think it's going to come back to bite us in the foot when we're looking at things and we're like, oh, man, I feel like we would have won this game, but it was just too much pressure on Malik Washington throughout the game to make throw after throw out, third and longs. And yeah, he made some big ones. Yeah, he made some plays, but we just were always in 3rd and 7. We were always 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. The best things we got were 3rd and 5s, and we were still throwing the football just because every time we'd rush it on 1st or 2nd down, it wouldn't get any type of momentum. And I think it's a scary thing with the rest of our season, how things are going, not to be able to run the football at all. And again, to go back to the first point, it looks like we're going to be relying on the pass. We haven't done it well. And that's been something over the career of Mike Locksley that I have been down on. It's just so much throwing the football, and it's entertaining. To be frank, I'd rather watch Malik Washington spin the ball around than watch us run the football. Yeah, I would, but in terms of actually, I'd rather watch us win games than in terms of actually watching Maryland football win games. Not having any type of balance isn't going to let us win games. It just ain't going to do it. And I think it'll come back to bite us. I think this game against Wisconsin is going to be really interesting in that category. So we'll see how that goes. Let's talk about the defense. They played really well against Towson. We'll talk about that, where I've been impressed on the defense side of the ball. We'll talk about that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right calls can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. It's a quick and easy, and honestly my favorite way to follow along with football. I love checking projections like Josh Allen for more than 270 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley for more than 1 rushing touchdown. And the best part is even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play so you can still double your money. And this week's max discounts include Patrick Mahomes over a half passing yard, which is definitely going to happen. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in your lineups play for first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So we've been talking pretty bad about the balance on Maryland's roster, but somewhere I have actually been really impressed. And I know we gave up some points against Towson, but some of that was just kind of you're playing a game. Maryland scores 44 points. Like Towson's going to do a little something. All of it came in the second half anyway. None of it was in the first half. So it was more when we kind of played some different players. I've been thoroughly impressed with this Maryland defense. Really impressed so far. I think it's kind of the lifeline of this Maryland team right now. And I think there's a lot of interesting young players that are going to end up being really good for Maryland football. And I like where this defense is at. I'm going to start with Carlton Smith. I thought the freshman linebacker impressed, and that's a deep space where I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm like, I know Daniel Wingate and Trey Reddick are the main guys there, and feels like every game Daniel Wingate and Trey Reddick are playing well. Trey Reddick had half the tackle for a loss. Daniel Wingate's leading her team in tackles, but it's Carlton Smith who had 6 total tackles, three solo tackles, and is played at a really high level. I didn't expect him to play a ton this year. I knew he was a guy that was pretty highly recruited by us. I remember him being even a 4-star on one website. But to me, I didn't expect with the current linebacker room, he was going to play a lot. But he's involved himself and got into the rotation and played a good game. And I thought that was something that was really big for Maryland football, seeing a kid like him be able to come in and play at a high level to go along with these other freshmen. The most impressive part of this defense so far, the two young edge rushers. You don't usually get this type of pass rush from two young edge rushers. And Zahir Mathis as well as Sidney Stewart, both guys notching a sack against Towson. Obviously, they have been thoroughly, really impressive to me, and they continue to look really good. I also, when you look at some of Towson's numbers, I thought we did a really good job in a couple of different areas. I said if we stop them from running the football, they can't beat us. They just can't. And that's exactly what we do. And a big part of it was they're down, so they kind of had to go away with it, just being down by so many points. And you know how that goes with the defense and the offensive play calling. But they rushed about 26 times for 51 carries. I love what I'm seeing from Maryland's front. I think guys are really working hard. Obviously, I talked about the edges, but other guys are playing it really well, whether it's Cam Rice, Ian Thomas had a tackle for loss. And there's just a lot of different guys on the defensive line I think are doing some good things for Maryland football, which I think is really important. Bryce Jenkins, the freshman, got to play some. So it's good to see different players up there get their opportunity to play. And so that was good to see as well from the Maryland defense. And then the secondaries also, I think, has been playing pretty well for the Terps. Towson did pass for 230 yards, but honestly, when you're a team that's down 34-0 at halftime, 230 yards is really not that bad for Maryland football to give up. It's really not a bad number when you look at Maryland football. They were going to pass the ball a ton against us to try and get back into it. They passed the ball around 30 times, 230 yards. Like that, we'll take that. They only completed 14 passes. So it was good to kind of see our secondary step up. How about Messiah Delhomme, another freshman? A lot of really good freshmen on this team, getting a pass deflection. He's been a guy that's been inserted that has been playing and has had a big impact and has been playing well. And so it's exciting to see all these freshmen, especially on, I think about Malik Washington as the big freshman on the offense side of the ball that's been playing well, but then on the defensive side of the ball, it runs a little bit deeper right now. whether it's the two edges and Zahir, as well as Sidney Stewart, whether it's guys in the secondary like Messiah Dell Home, who's playing really well, or at linebacker Carlton Smith led our team in tackles. It's really impressive to see for Maryland football. Lakai Rowland had the pick six, which I thought was pretty awesome to see as well. Jalen Husky's doing his thing, had a pass deflection. Dante Joyner had a pass deflection. So I overall think that our defense is playing definitely above where I kind of thought they would be. Reminder, though, the real test is against Wisconsin, and that leads me to my next point. We haven't played anybody. I keep talking about the passing game, whatever the case is, the defense side of the ball, not being able to run the football, whatever you want to call it. We haven't played anyone. So we have to take a lot of this with a grain of salt because now we have this Wisconsin team who I don't know if Billy Edwards is playing. I think he might. I absolutely hope he does. I think that brings a really cool storyline to this game. And I don't know if it gives us a clear advantage because I don't know how good their backup quarterback is. I know they kind of got smacked by Alabama, so I would assume he didn't play that well. Yeah, the backup didn't play that well. Danny O'Neal, 11-17, 117 yards, 2 interceptions, and a touchdown. So he definitely didn't really do that well. But I do think there's something to be said for when you play a quarterback a quarterback plays its former team. As much as Mike Locksley knows about Billy Edwards, what he's good at, what he's not good at, there's something to be said for that. And so I wonder if Mike Locksley could cook something up where we could have a real advantage over Billy Edwards. And then if the backup is playing, I think we also have an advantage over him. Both players, I would take Malik Washington, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see, can we stop Wisconsin's offense, a group that has been up and down so far this season. But again, they should be somewhat motivated coming off of getting smacked by Bama. One would think they want to get back on track. So we'll see how it goes, but I am kind of excited for that. I'm excited about how this defense is built. I'll give credit to Mike Locksley. I don't think there's a ton of clear holes. I still don't know if I'm like, okay, like there's any position group that I'm like, that's elite or that's really good. Like you'll have position groups for teams where they'll just be elite. Like when you think about some of the teams in college football, they just have elite position groups. Like when you think of Ohio State, elite receivers. When you think of defensive line, you think of Clemson, even though they're not playing well. Like I don't know if we have any groups that I would be like elite. Obviously, I'm not saying like they have to be Bama, a Bama offensive line elite, but I don't know if we have any group that's like I'm like is really good. But I also don't see a true hole. Like last year was like the secondary is awful. It's really bad, and the pass rush and the defensive line isn't that great either. And so I think that's something that has been really big for Maryland football is not having a ton of holes so far that are obvious on the defense side of the ball. Let's talk a little bit about Shalik Knox. Is he becoming a star? We'll talk about that next. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets and the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Gametime, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app is made super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I love the zone deals too. Pick the section and Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. And honestly, it's faster and cheaper and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked on College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download the Gametime app today. So I think we have another star receiver in the making with Maryland receiver Shalik Knox. It took a while. It took some time. I'll be completely honest. I didn't think it was going to happen. I talked about this before, but all offseason, there was nothing to be said about Shalik Knotts. Nothing to be said. I didn't hear a peep about him. I didn't hear he was playing well. I didn't hear anything. I heard about Ryan Manning playing well. We heard about some of the transfers doing some stuff. We didn't hear much at all about Shalik Knotts. And I was like, in my head, I was like, this, the media is not always right. But in my head, I'm like, I haven't heard anything about Shalik Knotts. Obviously, we're not at practice every day, but I'm like, maybe he won't make much of an impact for Maryland football this year. And I don't know if you guys have realized, but so far, I don't want to say this, but Shalik Knotts is kind of, to me, kind of been a bust so far. I think it's fair to say that before this year. It's just as a former four-star recruit, we expect by your junior year that you're going to put up some production. And last year, he only had 11 receptions, 161 yards, and a touchdown. Really didn't do too much. And I'm pleased to say he might have figured it out. And we'll see again when we're heading into Big Ten play. But he might have figured it out. And if you look at his numbers so far in 2025, they already beat all of his numbers from 2024, 2023, whatever year you want to go to. They already beat all of them. 2025 so far through 3 games, 11 receptions, 196 yards, 17.8 yards per catch with 3 touchdowns already. 2024, 11 receptions, 161 yards, and a 14.6 average with only 1 touchdown. 2023, sophomore year, 7 receptions, 55 yards, 7.9 yards per catch, no touchdowns. Freshman year, 5 receptions, 25 yards. He's made extreme improvement, and it's almost a guaranteed thing for Maryland football. There's going to be some receiver that is going to make the next step, and it looks like that is going to be Shalik. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Ty Felton and go in the 3rd round, but he's giving us a real 3rd receiving threat where I feel better about who we're rolling out there, who Malik Washington can throw to. And that's a really good system. That's a really good effect to have on defenses. And we know he's a big body. And so far, I've been really impressed with some of the deep stuff for Shalik Knotts. He's getting open down the field, and Malik Washington's finding him. And I think that's important. I think Jaleel Farouk's kind of our tall possession receiver is going to get open. Octavian Smith, quick, fast, is probably our, I think, most explosive guy. And then Shalik Knotts is more of a downfield threat, red zone threat so far this year. A really big part of this is Malik Washington likes throwing Shalik Knotts the ball. And this is a thing for receivers. Not every quarterback likes throwing to every receiver. There's been many different cases, many of quarterbacks coming in with a really good receiver that played really well the past year. All of a sudden, that receiver doesn't do much. Some receivers are quarterback proof, but some aren't. And a guy like Shalik Knotts, maybe the guys that have played so far, and I know he hasn't been on the field a ton, but maybe the guys that have played so far weren't particularly drawn to Shalik Knotts. And Malik Washington is. And I think that's a big part of this, and I think that's really exciting for Shalik Knotts. And he's been our most consistent receiver so far this year. I would say he's been our most consistent guy in the receiving room. He's leading our Maryland receiving room in reception yards right now. And so I think it's really important because, again, going back to the first segment, Maryland football is going to rely on the pass. We're not really running the football too much. We're not doing too much of those things. And you look at us in this receiving room, it is going to be pivotal for Maryland football in winning games this year because we're going to throw the ball. And guys like Shalik Knotts and Caleb Webb are going to be really big parts. And we're going to see how it contributes to Big Ten play. But he clearly made a jump. I honestly thought it was going to be Ryan Manning as a 3rd guy just because of what I was hearing. But I do think Shalik complements Jaleel a little bit better. I think he's a little bit more talented than Ryan Manning just with his size and his skill set. But I'm excited to see what he can do for the rest of the year. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.